Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the meeting of the Wheatfield Town Board for July 13th, 2015. We're going to start this evening before our regular meeting with a presentation by our auditor. Drescher Malecki has been our auditor for several years. This year, Matt Montalvo is going to be presenting our financial position as of the end of this audit. We have not seen it yet. He will be giving that to us shortly, but he will be presenting us with the numbers now. Matt, the floor is all yours. If you do want to be heard, you'll probably have to get one of the mics.
Okay, this isn't?
That works.
Perfect. All right. Let me start from the beginning here. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Matt Montalvo from Drescher Malecki. We're the town's external auditors, and I'm here to present the results for the 12/31/14 audit. I'll refer you to the screen over here. I have handouts for the board as well to follow along. First, the products of our audit are essentially, what are the deliverables at the end of the audit? We do provide financial statements, basic financial statements, as well as a management letter and an auditor communication letter. And within the auditor communication letter, some of our required communications to the board. I'll go through some of those. I'll also provide a financial statement update or a, kind of some trend analysis and graphs on your financial statements. And then I'll conclude with some final observations on the town audit. First, some of our required communications. Our responsibility in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. What we have to clarify is that management is responsible for the books and the records. Our responsibility is to express an opinion on the fair presentation of those financial statements. So we don't accept responsibility for the books and the records. What we do is express an opinion on the fair presentation. So we do plan on going forward with what's referred to as an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, or essentially a clean opinion on your financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2014. So that's really the best you can do from an audit report. Independence, all the staff on the engagement up through the management and supervision are required to be independent of the town or free of conflicts of interest. This is what allows us to be objective in performing our audit tests. So all of the members of the audit team were independent of the town. Your significant accounting policies and significant estimates are disclosed in your financial statements. What we do, specific to estimates, is develop our own independent expectations, compare that to what is recorded by management, and if it's within a reasonable range, we conclude that they're reasonable. So your estimates for this year were within a reasonable range. Your main estimate is your retiree health liability. Other matters, if there were any significant disagreements with management, or if we were told not to look in one department or kind of restricted as far as our scope, we would have to disclose that to the board. None of those occurrences happened. We were given open access to the books and the records. So those are the basic required communications for the town audit. I want to go through some of the financial statement updates and give you some comparisons to put your numbers into some context for you. I'll start with most of your major funds I'll cover. I'll start with the water fund, and essentially this graph is a 5-year comparison of your revenues compared to your expenditures. And you can see, over the past 4 years, it's been pretty close, almost at a break-even point. In 2014, your consumption did come down a little bit, due to some wet weather conditions. So there's a little bit of a gap in 2014, but that's kind of, again, for funds that are driven by consumption, it's difficult to predict. But that's something to monitor as you're going forward. So you did have a decrease in your water fund balance for 2014. Let me get there. Of approximately $73,000. You can see the favorable trend over the last 4 years, and just a small decrease then in 14. Your sewer fund, moving on, has a similar trend on page 6. 2014, you can see that gap where revenues fell below your expenditures, again, driven mostly by consumption. And then the impact on your fund balance, obviously, a slight decrease in your fund balances. Within the sewer fund, you did appropriate $250,000 of your fund balance to lessen your tax burden. So, again, that was a planned use of $250,000. Your actual decrease was, under $200,000. So you did actually come under your planned use of fund balance within that fund. Moving on to the highway fund. Again, your revenue expenditure trend. Over the last 4 years, your revenues have, fallen or exceeded your expenditures. In 2014, you did have some unplanned expenditures within that fund. You also operated without a highway tax in 2014. So the board, made the decision to get rid of the highway tax and to lessen the tax burden, and as well as, some unplanned expenditures on Craig Drive and Eric Road were the major projects that, kind of, caused your expenditures to increase quite a bit in 14. So you did have a decrease in 14 of about $250,000, but again, you did have a planned use of fund balance within that fund as well. Here's the 5-year trend for highway fund, and you can see from your 2010 balance or deficit was close to $400,000. So you can see the improvement in this particular fund over the last 5 years. You did have, a decrease in 14, but you're sitting with a pretty stable balance at the end of 14 due to the work you did over the last 4 years. I'll move on to your main operating fund, your general fund. Again, a trend comparison, your revenues were quite a bit above your expenditures over the last 4 years. You were able to build up those balances. For 2014, you did have about a $191,000 decrease, but you had a planned use of $425,000. So you felt, you were very favorable compared to your planned use of fund balance within that fund. Here's your 5-year fund balance trend, and this shows, again, a very, very favorable trend over the last 5 years, a slight decrease in 14. But what I'll do for the general fund, we usually look at the unassigned, or essentially your available fund balance. So on the next graph, we show your 4-year analysis of your unassigned fund balance. And there's a chart on the right-hand side that shows the percentage of your expenditures over the last 4 years. And you can see you've been over 30%, in your last 4 years. And those are strong percentages. Those are strong numbers for your main operating fund. As you can see, you're just over almost $1.4 million in 2014 of unassigned fund balance. So, pretty favorable trends. Obviously, there was some planned use of fund balance in 2014, to kind of lessen the tax burden. But, all in all, when you sit there and look at your final balances at the end of 14, you're in a very stable condition. So just some general observations from an internal control perspective. There's no material weaknesses reported. That's really, we're never going to say that you have a perfect control system. We're always looking at and providing recommendations for improvement. So we will issue a formal management letter, but there's no items of a material nature that are required to be communicated. I want to, talk a little bit about some final, observations about the financial position. One of the things we look at is indicators or, positive indicators from other agencies. First you have an oversight agency in the New York State Comptroller's Office. They have a fiscal monitoring system. The town is within the no designation class, and that's actually the best category you can be in within their monitoring system. So you're not in any of the stress categories, the fiscal stress category. So that's a positive. From another area we look at, your bond rating increased during just recently, actually. So that is another indicator from an independent third party that shows, financial health. So, I mean, we consider all these factors. We obviously do our own independent analysis and trends, but those are positive items. And then you have been compliant with the tax cap and the tax freeze legislation. You submitted your government efficiency plan on time, and it looks like you'll be, compliant with that. So from the compliance side, no findings as well. Those are kind of my concluding observations. I will open up to any questions, on the audit or our procedures.
Ed, one on, you mentioned the bond rating just recently, I guess, improved.
Yes, from Moody's.
What was it and what is it?
It was, maybe Ed, help me out with this. I think it was an A2, and it improved to a double A3.
So what does that mean? Is that like when you go to get a car loan and you get your credit report and you're a 600 and you got a 4% loan, or if you're 800 you get a 1% car loan? Is that?
I mean, there's different rating agencies, and obviously they have different tables. From what we look at, is especially the description that Moody's, they explain what their ratings mean, and basically it was indicative of the financial health of the town. They cited your positive increases over the last 4 years, your stable fund balance position, things of that nature.
Is that something the town has to petition to get a better bond rating, or do they do it magically by themselves without us asking?
Well, if you're doing an additional bond issuance, if you're issuing debt, that's usually when it comes out. You would have to request, I would say, anything beyond that.
Okay.
It came out all by itself, as far as I know. They just came. It's been 5 years since the last time they did it. They downgraded us 5 years ago. 2 clicks, and what this did is bring it back to where we were when I came into office. The problem being the deficits that we had at the time are all gone, and now we're in a fund balance position, and we're fairly stable without adding tax.
Correct.
And they seem to be happy with that. The auditor seemed to be happy with that. He dealt mostly with Ed. Ed gave him the paperwork that he was seeking, but when they came back, he did talk to me and Ed together, and basically said things are going well, going the way you would like them to go. Is there much of an advantage? There could be a small advantage when you go out for bid for a bond. You might get a 0.5% less or 1/4% less, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're borrowing $1 million, it can be substantial.
It can be significant, yeah. No, I mean, it's a positive, it's not just, for show. It's definitely a positive impact.
Yeah. And we had not gone out for any bond issues, and right now we're working on the bond issue for the Fairmont Park. But we have not gone out for bond issues. That's not what drove it. They just called up one day and said, this is Moody's.
Right.
Who do I talk to? Matt, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay.
If you do have any further questions, if anybody has any further questions, you know how to get a hold of Matt, or we can get together again. We still do not have the financials. I do not have them in the office. They'll be coming presumably shortly. Once we have them, then they'll be put up on the website so everybody can see where we are.
Yep, they're in draft form currently, and we anticipate within a few weeks to have that final issued.
Okay.
I think your PowerPoint would be excellent to put on the website too, if we could.
That sounds like a challenge for you, Larry.
Email it to me.
I'll have to get some approval from the boss on that, but
put it up for us.
Thank you for the compliment, though. I'll take it.
Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.